If you want to know how to move up in life, it's as easy as taking that first step. Today we're talking about living in your imagination and not your memory, because our life is limited by what we believe. And so it's important that we make some new ones. Let's get off this escalator and get into it. The past, or as we call it, our memory, it is where everything about us exists. It is where all of our limiting beliefs are. When we say things like, I can do this, or my family does this, or, you know, I feel like I could do that in a lifetime, all of that exists in our memory. So our memory, and I say this kind of tongue-in-cheek, right? Like, we all understand kind of what limiting beliefs are, but I really want you to hone in on really the things that you think about on a daily basis. What are those limiting beliefs really? They're really you looking through the history of your life, right? What were the things you were able to do in high school? What were the things people said about you as a kid? What were the things that your parents said to you when you were growing up, right? What were the things that they pushed you to do? Was it sports? Was it piano lessons? Is the reason that you're into music because you grew up doing music, or is it because you never got to do music and now you're doing it almost as this rebellion, and then you ultimately fell in love with it, right? All of these things affect our psychology, and they also affect, you know, what we can do going forward if we fixate too much on them. So let's use myself as an example. I was a runner for a long time, and my identity statement for a very large portion of my life was that I was a runner, right? And so everything about me, my value as a person, was so closely related to running, because that's where all of my validation came from, that's where all of my praise came from, that's where all of my even stress and friction in my life came from, trying to perform on the track. I ended up, you know, winning state and going to college for running, and it ended up being my downfall because I didn't have any value statements outside of that, right? And so as soon as I had my first knee surgery and I couldn't run and I couldn't perform, I started to feel useless, and I actually became depressed. I had to go to a sports psychologist because of this, because of these identity and value statements that were fixed on only one part of my life, right? I'm not a runner, I'm just Forrest, right? Forrest is capable of running. Forrest is capable of being a trader. Forrest is capable of doing all of these other things, right? But I fixated on just this one thing, and that can be a huge benefit for you, right? You obviously should look back on your life on the things that you're good at, but we should not build guardrails or really a box around ourselves based off of just that one thing. Here's another example. Imagine, right, you're really, really good at something, and there's something else that you've never tried. And you probably said things like, well, just because I'm good at this doesn't mean I'm going to be good at that. Well, the inverse is true. Maybe because you're good at this, you'll also be good at that, right? The only reason you're not good at that is because you haven't tried, right? Most things don't take that long to get, right? Imagine doing something new for a year, right? After a year, you're going to have some competency, but most of us cannot even see past that initial 2 weeks of friction, those first 2 weeks of just feeling dumb and looking like an idiot and not knowing what you're talking about, and then people possibly calling you out and saying, wait, that's not right, right? So much of what we do or don't do is based off of just like this first few hours even of just feeling dumb. And that doesn't matter, guys. Like, if you plan to do something for years at a time, or if you plan to do something in the long term, right? Stop looking back on, you know, these who you grew up to be, right? And all the things that you've done as really the limiting and deciding factors for what you can do going forward. Here's the other third important thing about what is in our memory, right? So much of our memory and our limiting beliefs is based off of our childhood, right? The things that happen in your childhood could be environmental. They could be all types of things, right? And so something that we have to do, especially if you're my age, I'm 31, is evaluate what statements about yourself is based off of shit that happened to you when you were a kid, right? If you're still saying things, well, my parents did this, and you're a grown adult, you gotta let go of that, guys. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, I just know it's not healthy, right? So you gotta move beyond those limiting beliefs, those limiting statements, especially if they're rooted in your childhood, because once you're an adult, it's on you. It can take a long time to unravel and work through, but it's totally worth it, especially if you want to do big things, whether it's being a successful artist, successful business person, right? Successful father, successful mother, right? Whatever it is you want to be good at, right? Even if it's just a really fit person, someone who can commit to a practice, right? You have to get beyond those things. So that's our memory. That's everything that exists in the past. Let's talk about what exists in the future. So your imagination. One perfect example of that is this YouTube channel. Guys, it can be super weird filming in public like I am right now, but I just had to change my belief about myself, thinking that I wasn't a content creator, someone who could create content. Ultimately still on the journey, but I'm doing that now. Thinking that you can start a business even though you have a high-paying 9-to-5 job. Again, another example from my own life. I feel like I try to use my own life as an example for all my videos, right? But ultimately I have a high-paying job. I want to stop doing that someday, so I've started investing in real estate, started day trading, doing all these other things, right? Things that are ultimately really, really hard to do. Things that when I talk to my peers about it, people are like, man, I don't know, man. That's really hard and confusing. You know, how do you find editors? How do you find camera people? How do you do all this work? Ultimately, you just have to sit down and imagine what your life could be, right? You have to think about imagining what your life could be in every aspect. It's not just about fitness, right? Maybe you're overweight today and you want to be, I don't know, maybe not even super fit. You just want to lose weight, right? Instead of thinking about the work to get there, just imagine and think about being successful. Think about being that person who is in that place already, right? Maybe you want to pay your house off. Instead of thinking about all the work that it would take to pay your house off, think about just having it paid off and being that person. It starts with imagining that you are in that outcome, right? You can think about it as visualizing success. I don't really think about it visualizing success. I think about this actually sitting down and daydreaming a bit that you are that person and starting to believe that it's possible for you, right? One of my favorite things, I listen to Les Brown every morning for this reason, is just, you know, language is so effective, has such a strong effect on our minds, our mood, and what we believe about our day. You know, one of the favorite things that he says is just imagine that it's possible, right? If you imagine that something is possible, you'll start to make small gradual steps towards achieving that outcome. If something is impossible, right, I wouldn't try to fly because I believe that it's impossible, right? If somebody had a different belief, then maybe they would try. So first, believe that it's possible. Think about and imagine all the different ways that, or all the different parts of your life that you want to change or have different outcomes for, right? Fitness, education, relationships, your car, your house, anything like that. And it's really that simple, you know? You don't have to overcomplicate it. A lot of it is figuring it out as you go. Focus on the iteration, right? Look long. One thing I've learned day trading, right? Let's just use myself as an example again. There's all this knowledge or technical knowledge that you can get, but until you actually sit down at your desk every day and try it, right, you're not going to fully understand even what is possible, right? And so first it was believing that I could be a day trader, and now that I've actually started day trading, now my belief about what a day trader can accomplish has changed, right? I used to just think, oh, I just want to make $500 a day. My goal right now is to try to make $5,000 a day, right? I've been doing like $2,000 to $3,000 a day. If I can make $5,000 a day, then after that, I'll try to make $10,000 a day, right? And then I'm sure once I do that, it'll get even bigger. And I know day traders now that I'm in this community who are doing millions of dollars a year, but I didn't even think it was possible, right? I thought I was just trying to do scalp, just pay off my debts, things like that. But once you start and actually get into it and have the knowledge, what you think is actually possible will also change. So ultimately it comes down to using your imagination, guys. I know how corny this sounds. You know, I imagined we were gonna film here and then they kicked us out, so now we're over here. But, you know, one of the things that happened to me when I decided to go off the beaten path of just, you know, trying to make $10,000 more a year, you know, and trying to unlock the next level of trading, is thinking about what do highly successful people do. And highly successful people do a lot of weird stuff, right? They say affirmations out loud, right? They go to mindset conferences, right? They do all this stuff that feels corny and weird to do, but then you realize that like everyone who's like a top 5, top 1% earner is doing all this weird stuff, and it's because it has a really strong effect on our brain. And vice versa, we don't think about all the stuff that we do automatically that has an adverse effect on our brain, right? What is all the media that we're consuming that makes us feel bad about ourselves? What are the things that we say out loud on a daily basis that make us feel bad about ourselves, right? All of this stuff we do automatically, so why is it so hard for us to do things that are positive? And it's because we have this limiting belief that we are not those people. We believe that we're normal. When we believe that we're not exceptional, we feel bad, we feel weird, we feel guilty about doing things that exceptional people do. And you have to change that limiting belief about yourself, right? So go to the weird conference, meet the people, say the affirmations out loud, right? Sit down and journal, write about your life, imagine yourself being successful, right? Say it out loud, say it on Instagram, say it on TikTok, start a YouTube channel, right? Ignore all the haters, ignore the feedback, ignore that voice in your head that says this isn't you, because it is you. You can do these things. Start thinking with your imagination and not your memory, guys. My name is Forrest. I invest in stuff, and you should too. Mindset, finances, your body, all of the above. Till next time, see you in the next one. Peace.